That has relevance to all of us, I think. I'm good, Bill. How are when is the other shoe going to fall? Over here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You can hear me, yes? Yes. Good. Always worth asking. And if for some reason it sort of disappears, just feel free to wave a hand and I'll see if I can speak louder or do something about that. Okay? It's okay to slow me down. Welcome, everybody, to one of the final summer services. Next Sunday will be our final service of the summer season, and on Sunday, September 9th, we'll be having our Rally Sunday as we sort of get in gear for the fall again, and Sunday school will really be underway that day, and we're going to do something kind of special that day. We're going to have Blessing of the kids' backpacks as they go to school, knowing that we're sending them off on a journey and wanting to send them off with our blessing and God's blessing on their journey of school this year. We will also that day be commissioning our search committee. I'm the interim minister, so we'll be commissioning our search committee for a settled pastor. Also a very important moment. So there is, Beth, there is nursery school and
Yes.
and for kids. We're all set this morning. Good. So Beth and Bethany, thank you very much. One change in the program this morning. My sermon title, as sometimes happens, somehow morphed and changed. And so my sermon title this morning, instead of giving your chains a little shake, is going to be How We Are at This Time. How we are at this time. Are there any other announcements this morning? Vicki, back here. Chip, I think has the...
You gotta hold it just a second.
Yeah, mechanical.
I can yell.
There you go.
How's that?
There you go.
The search committee had its first meeting last Tuesday night, and we are now, I think, pretty well organized. We're going to elect a chair at our next meeting in September. Peter walked us through a timeline of research, which appears like a lengthy timeline until you think of all the work we have to do. But the gist of it is that we hope to have a settled pastor at this church at the beginning of 2020. So we'll have about a year and 3 months, hopefully, to do our work. It is a really good team of people. I think you will be happy with how we are progressing. We're going to keep you informed. And this week, you will receive in your email a copy of the timeline so that you can see exactly what our work plan is. So thank you.
Other announcements? There is a meeting of the council, the church council, after church, right after church. Is that right, Joe? Okay, great. And we'll meet in the ring room. Is that correct? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Any other announcements this morning? Then, Dennis, will you lead us into worship?
I believe that somewhere in the dark
Our meditation this morning is taken from the writings of a mystic and monk by the name of Meister Eckhart, who lived in the late 13th, early 14th century. And his work has really been recovered in the 20th and early 21st century. And the meditations, just for those of you who may not be familiar with this process, have really two possible purposes each week. Sometimes they're tied into the theme of the service. Sometimes they're just simply to help us pause and prepare for worship, to prepare our hearts for worship, to create space in our hearts for real listening and engagement with worship. And this one today is of the latter variety. And Meister Eckhart wrote, "God is like a person who clears his throat while hiding, and so gives himself away. God lies in wait for us with nothing so much as love." Will you join me now in our responsive call to worship in your bulletin? God calls the simple, the weak, and the powerless. God calls the stuck, the lonely, and the lost. And what does God ask of us?
To do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God.
And will you join me in our unison prayer? Holy One, you have opened for us a new and living way. May we step back this morning and let you lead the way. Help us to see what you see. Give us hearts to know truth from illusion, especially our own. And at the end of the day, welcome us home in peace. Amen. And so let us sing in the hymnal, "Rejoice, Be Ye Pure in Heart," number 113. why each Sunday I include the psalm. Traditionally, in the lectionary, there is always a psalm. And historically, the psalms were sung in the temple. They were chanted, and they represented a call and answer between the leaders of worship at that time and the people of God. And so they were a way of echoing our prayer to God and our willingness to listen to God. And the fascinating part, if you read them carefully, is that there is no human experience that is not expressed in the songs. They're very gritty stuff. And so to have that raised to the level of liturgical worship and experience as a common body is such a beautiful thing, and answers what we actually say in a reading from the Old Testament, for example, or from the Gospels. So the first of our readings this morning is taken from the Psalms, and it is a good example of what might have been at one time a responsorial psalm, in which the first 6 verses, we're reading the first 7 verses of Psalm 86. The first 5 or 6 verses, 5 verses, would have been what the one voice would have said in supplication to God, looking for answers, and asking God for answers. And the answer in verse 6 and 7, would have been either from some form of choir or from the whole people of God answering, giving confidence that there is an answer when you really seek with your whole heart from God. Now, the Ephesians passage from the New Testament is a very famous passage. It's called the Armor of God passage. And in effect, what Paul is saying is that in this world, we have a kind of spiritual warfare that we're engaged in, but we cannot fight with the usual tactics of army and warfare. We put on instead the armor of God, which is truth, righteousness, faith, and peace, as the different pieces of our armor. I'm going to take this in a little bit different direction this morning, but it's a well-known passage, and it's wonderful to hear it once again. So first, Psalm 86, verses 1 through 7, a prayer of David himself. Incline your ear, O Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you. Save your servant who trusts in you, for you are my God. Be gracious to me, O Lord. For to you do I cry all day long. Gladden the soul of your servant. For to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. For you, O Lord, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love to all who call on you. And perhaps then all would say together, give ear, O Lord, to my prayer. Listen to my cry of supplication. In the day of my trouble, I call on you, for you will answer me. The reading from the Psalms, and then to Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verses 10 to 20. A reminder here that Paul is in jail. He is in chains. He is waiting for a trial and almost a certain sentence of death. And yet this is not reading a letter of sadness. Finally, says Paul, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. Put on the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to withstand on that evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Stand therefore and fasten the belt of truth around your waist, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. As shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. With all of these, take the shield of faith with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Pray in the Spirit at all times, in every prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert and always persevere in supplication for all the saints. Pray also for me, so that when I speak, a message may be given to me to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it boldly, as I must speak. And here ends the reading from Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Very true. In the reading today, it talks about the armor of God. What's armor? Do you know what armor is? Yeah, something right. Something protection. Good for you. And actually, I brought what St. Paul meant when he wrote about the armor of God. He wanted us to think about the armor that soldiers wore. And I brought a picture of what a Roman soldier would wear. You know, there's a shield, right? And he's holding a helmet, and he's got a breastplate, and a belt, and in his case, he's got sandals. Interestingly enough, the word in, do you know what the language was that they spoke in Rome? Do you know what it was called? Latin. It's called Latin. And that belt is called a balteus, and that's where we get our word belt. Isn't that interesting? And this thing that looks like a kilt, that was called a tunica, and that's where we get our word tunic. Isn't that interesting? So we have words that we have from those things. But you can see this is how a soldier was dressed for war. And so we felt you might like to see sort of this is pretty nice. That's pretty cool. And you all can see it. No, not bad. Very cool. But what St. Paul wanted us to know is that when we feel like we're in big trouble in the world, he wants us to put a very different kind of armor on. And so, he wants us to put on a belt of truth. And then he also talks about putting on shoes or sandals of peace. So what does that mean? It means that in our world needs us to practice telling the truth and being truthful, and also, wherever we go, to bring peace. And that is the way to put on the armor of God instead of the armor of soldiers, and for ourselves to be at peace. So, when we think of the armor of God, think of the things that we put on the inside, like truth and peace. And those are the things that will see us through, so that we ourselves are at peace. That looks good. So, let's say together the prayer that Jesus taught us, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Okay, there's nursery and Sunday school. Beth and Bethany, if you can lead us. So my sermon is called How We Are at This Time. Somebody asked me a little while ago just before the service about how my vacation was, and this is a little bit of a reflection because just because I'm not in church doesn't mean that life doesn't keep happening, you know, and what my wife calls the forgiveness opportunities of life continue to come out. Is that fair? Yeah. So how are we to be at this time? And I have to say, I can't remember a time in my own life when my own core ideas have felt so challenged. Core ideas about what is rational, true, decent, and beautiful. It's true. If anybody cares to know, I am a classic, old-fashioned, unapologetic liberal. a globalist, a skeptic about the virtues of unregulated capitalism, a believer in the positive role for government in our lives. You've heard it all before, an advocate for the marginalized and the underserved. Heterodox in my belief about Jesus, a pastor who deeply respects other faiths and paths, passionate in my support for all of God's people, an American who never forgets his immigrant roots, and a lover, by the way, of the Red Sox, opera, and jazz. You will understand, therefore, that when my brother Mark and I got together over vacation, he, a Baptist pastor, a strong supporter of President Trump and Make America Great Again, we nearly went at it and looked at palms. Now, full disclosure here. I was, as they say, loaded for bear. Much to my surprise, my brother Mark stood down and refused to argue. Full peace points to Mark. I do so appreciate my brother. But here's the thing. See, my point is neither to defend myself or to disparage Mark. That's not my point. The reason I'm telling you all this is that I'm noticing something that Mark and I share that I find very hard to accept, and I suspect he does also. I haven't talked to him about this, but Mark and I don't derive our divergent beliefs from a common understanding of what reality is. We see entirely different versions of what is true. In other words, it's clear that this is really hard even to say. What we believe creates what we see. Let me say again, what we believe creates what we see in the world, not the other way around. And therefore, there is no common truth at the level of our perception. No, not even offending. So what to do with this thought that what we believe creates what we see? I don't like where I'm going with this, by the way. But I don't have to like it. I think it's about the truth. You may not like it either. The truth is simple. We are locked in, all of us, a self-defeating illusion that somebody has to be right, and therefore somebody has to be wrong. My problem is that I want to be right. Not only that, but because being right always means being in constant spiritual warfare against enemies, I seem to have to constantly find new enemies to sustain the idea that I'm right. Now, how's that working for you? What do you... Yeah, exactly. Entirely. So, I look to Jesus. Jesus allowed himself to be crushed by the illusion of rightness. I am quite sure that if there's any other way than the cross to prove that rightness is an illusion, he would have taken that path. He chose the cross. Crucified by Roman political power, condemned by the religious authorities, abandoned by his closest friends, grieving his family, dismissed by those who wanted him to be a real king, Jesus died on a cross, nailed there by expectations of what is right and the view of those around him that he did not meet those expectations. He rose from the dead, shattering our illusion that being right is powerful. And what rose in him was not condemnation, but acceptance. And not rightness, but lightness that speaks of forgiveness, healing, and a way home to God. I return to my question then, how to be in this world at this time. What if we were to bring not rightness, but lightness to our lives? What if there was nothing to defend, but everything to share? What if our defense were laughter, openness, and curiosity? What if we didn't worry about looking like fools for love and the adventure of being alive? What if we can sit with pain, ours or another's, and not try to fix it? What if we do not shrivel in bitterness at life's betrayals, but let ourselves be as touched by sorrow as by joy? What if we are not interested in anyone's rightness or wrongness, but ask instead what sustains them on the inside when all else falls away? What if you can be alone with yourself and like the company you keep? What if you were as willing to lay down for your life for another who is not of your own party as you are of your own? What if you were to ask of me the same questions? Are we not getting closer to the life of Jesus? And what if another cannot accept how you are? Can you stay the course? What if we were to proclaim our lightness boldly? Why then we wouldn't need the armor of God at all. And there would be no spiritual warfare. And our best defense would be our defenselessness. We would understand for the first time that we no longer need to be careful about life, not careful about life, for we are completely cared for. And then we could truly celebrate the mystery of a gospel that works for the benefit of all. Amen. For the hymnal, let's sing number 447. And yeah, should we sing this twice through, or where's it like?
There's 3 verses.
Okay, the 3 verses, that's right, okay. Thanks, 447. Let us come to a time now in which we offer both prayers and our gifts. And to set a context for that, to remember and to bring up those things for which, like in the Psalms, we pray that come directly from our hearts and from our lives. And I'll begin by reading the list of folks in the call to care list that we gather in this congregation, and then pause for a moment to just allow you to add your own names in your heart. Today we keep in our prayers Sandra Brown, Helen Cromer, Chris Gilman, Richard Mollet, Judy Panett, Jerry Rose, Jean Smith, Mary Eliza Wendrin, Dorothy Whitaker, Paul Zanichowski. And in your heart add your own names. And so we do add those names that come from our hearts, dear God, and we know and believe that you, in answer, give to all of us your grace and peace. Amen. Come to the time of offering our gifts. Summer is slowly turning into fall and the season of harvest. My garden has too many cucumbers, and they were getting into the flower beds and everything else, so I finally pulled them up. Let us also now in our effort, in our offering, share a portion of our abundance for the work of the church, and may that work spread anywhere it wants to go. Let us receive the morning offering. Accept our gifts, O God, and bless us on the way to touch many lives with your joy and peace. Amen. Please be seated. Would you continue with me in the spirit of prayer? Holy One, we daily put on the armor of defense and attack. The brooding and warlike spirit far more than a spirit of truth and peace. This is the world we live in. We pay attention to it. We are drawn into it. And we carry the burden of its anger and fear wherever we go. It feels like spiritual warfare. Could we desire in your name, dear God, a far lighter spirit, buckling on your truth and putting our feet in the ways of your peace. And so let these be our defense. Teach us the mystery of your good news, that we need not be so anxiously careful, for you care for us. Let this be our prayer, like Paul, that we may announce boldly that your strength and wisdom have transformed our lives, and that our deepest loyalty is to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And so now, as we go forth to love and to serve God, let us sing. And I have chosen a hymn. I take responsibility for this. This is not Dennis doing. The name of the hymn is Now It Is Evening. Well, I know it's not evening, but I love this hymn. We never get to sing it. So we're going to sing Now It Is Evening, just as though it is. Number 627. May God's Spirit guide you and lead you out the door of the church and back into your lives. How you are matters. May God's wisdom and strength keep you, protect you, and grow your light wherever you go. In Jesus' name, amen.